This is Back Roads of Illinois server to farmers and ranchers in central Illinois and the Midwest. Today's edition of Back Roads of Illinois. We were bringing you lasted for farming sources and information sponsored by AgriGold. We're glad you're here on today for our program. Well, Mike Pairrie was a great farm broadcaster for our state of Illinois. I got a chance with Mike in Kansas City from NAFTA convention last year, and he gave me a lot of respect for my show. However, I will have a great conversation about Mike with Mr. Mike Adams. We welcome to our new affiliate on KSBJ in Jamestown, North Dakota on Facebook. And then we were talking about the commodities markets with John Heinberg from Total Farm Marketing. You've been listening to Back Roads of Illinois. Well, Mike Pairrie was a great farm broadcaster for our state of Illinois. I got a chance with Mike in Kansas City from NAFTA convention last year, and he gave me a lot of respect for my show. However, I will have a great conversation about Mike with Mr. Mike Adams. Mike, how are you? And welcome to join us for today.
Well, it's my pleasure to be with you. Congratulations on the success of the show, and look forward to sharing some memories of Mike Perrine.
Mike, you know that Mike Pairrie has passed away for last week. He is a great colleague and our friends. Could you tell us what's impact on your own experiences with work to him?
Well, Mike Perrine taught me farm broadcasting. I started working with him in the mid 70s here in Jacksonville, Illinois. I was out of college and doing DJ work and doing sports. And Mike was starting the farm department at WLDS in Jacksonville, Illinois. And I was on the board running the controls. And because of my farm background, I kind of understood some of the things he was talking about and had an interest in what he was doing. And so I started helping a little more and a little more. And finally, he asked me to be his assistant. And keep in mind, at that time, I didn't even know there was such a thing as a farm broadcasting. I was just going to be a DJ and a sports announcer, do ball games, things like that. So I didn't even know there was farm broadcasting. Certainly didn't know that would be a career option. But he opened that door for me, and together we started covering agriculture across the state of Illinois and then eventually across the country. And some of it learning as we were going, but usually he had an idea what he wanted to do, and the main thing was to be out and about among the people, covering as many events as we could. And we had a lot of success working together. And then a few years later, he moved across town to WJIL, and we became competitors. And for a while, let me tell you, I worked harder those years, maybe any time in my life, because I knew he was working hard, and I was going to have to try to keep up with him. So and then our paths kind of went different directions. He went out of state for a while, and I started doing AgriTalk, and then eventually, I had the opportunity to bring back Mike to work with me. We were looking for a salesperson for AgriTalk, and I suggested that they hire Mike because he was the best farm radio salesman that I knew. He was tremendous. Got him on board along with producer John Harris, who had also worked with us at WLDS. And then we got a team together that enabled us to have great success with AgriTalk.
When did you know Mike before the radio station in Jacksonville? And how many years to work with AgriTalk?
Yeah, I met Mike in the mid 70s at WLDS Radio, and we worked together into the early 80s, and then brought Mike on at AgriTalk in the early 2000s. and we worked together for several years there. And what I did at AgriTalk was use the model that he gave me when we were back doing local radio. And that was to cover as many events as you could, get out among your listeners, learn about them, let them get to know you, find out what's going on in their states and in their towns and on their farms. So I took that model that we used in local radio in the 70s and 80s. I took it to AgriTalk and just expanded it to a national level, and it worked very well for us.
Still was having disco. How did he say that you had to work with him on it? OA and other shows?
When I started AOA, Mike helped quite a bit. He was always a big promoter of agriculture and ag radio, and he was a big promoter of AOA. And he talked with a lot of stations and a lot of people that he knew promoting our new show. And he even did some sales work for us for a while, and helped bring in some income for get the show started. Um, Mike always believed strongly. One of the things he taught me was relationships. Build relationships with your listeners, with people in the industry, and you know, that always was something that I tried to do as well. And that's it's still a relationship business, even with all the technology and everything. It's still that one-on-one contact that we have with our listeners, and we. I hope we never lose that in this business. And it was always an important part of what Mike did. Mike felt strongly about those relations. He felt strongly about doing farm broadcasting a certain way, a right way, and he would share his thoughts and his feelings with you and with me and with a lot of broadcasters over the years to give them some assistance and just some tips and share some of his experiences with them. So he helped a lot of people along the way.
When did you start with the OA with Mike?
Well, I started with Mike at WLDS in about 74, 75. I went to AgriTalk in 2001, so he joined probably in about 2003 or four. And then when we started AOA, after working with Mike many years at AgriTalk, um, like I said, he was still helping me with AOA at the end of my career. So our careers paths were very much connected. Sometimes that we were going on the same road. Sometimes our paths were kind of winding, but they always seemed to come back and connect with each other.
Did you had some concerns with the gust?
Uh, when I look back, yeah, there was always concerns. But you do the best that you can do. You always, like I said, wanted to be fair and accurate. One of the things I try to do, even if it was a topic or something I had strong feelings on, that I was concerned about, or a controversial topic, let's say, I would try to get both sides on and let them each give their sides to it. And if I was interviewing someone that I knew it was a controversy or a sensitive topic, I would tell them up front, I have to ask you these tough questions, but I'm going to give you a chance to give your side of the story. And always tried to do that, and I think the audience appreciated that I wasn't trying to give just one side. Now, obviously, I'm trying to tell agriculture side, but there's a lot to that, because even within agriculture, there's certainly a lot of differences of opinion. So try to get as much information and different opinions on as we could.
Don't have your feelings over the interview.
In giving an interview, you do kind of give your own thoughts and opinions, and I would try to do. I part of my job was to have opinions and give my thoughts on things, but I didn't try to say I was always right. I just thought, here's the way I feel about something. Sometimes a guest or someone on would maybe even help change my mind or get me to look at something differently or from a different point of view, and I was open to that. but we all have things that we believe in strongly. I was a strong promoter of ethanol, obviously, and biofuels, and certainly the meat industry and different things. But I wanted to promote agriculture in general and tell farmers' stories to the non-farm audience. I had a farm audience and I had a non-farm audience, and I wanted to connect the two to help the two sides be able to understand each other a little bit better. What are consumers' concerns and what are farmers' challenges that they are dealing with? And always try to connect the two as best I could.
Agree with that. Do you have any final thoughts on our friend Mike Perini?
Mike was such an important part of my career and part of my life. And a lot of times I think about things that he taught me or shared with me. And it's still hard to believe he's not there because I would pick up the phone so often and we would talk about different things. And I just think that to all the people that he touched and all the people that he helped along the way, I think that will carry on. And his vision for farm broadcasting and his goal of telling agriculture story and promoting agriculture, that carries on in all of us in the ag media now that he had a chance to work with or to talk with and be a part of. And I think that's a tribute to him that carries on today.
He was a great guy. I wish that I had a conversation with him more.
Well, Cesar, I want to congratulate you on the work that you do and your success and all that you've been able to accomplish. And um, I wish you the very best as you continue with your work and keep up the good work. Okay, it's good. It's good to be with you.
Thanks, Mike. Prayer for Mike's family. This is Mike Adams. The corn crop is looking good for now. Otherwise, the beans is telling us different story about the pollination. We are going to have it on the harvest season by end of August. I'm looking forward to talking about that with John Heinberg from Total Farm Marketing. John, how are you and John? Saturday is August. You can't believe that it's almost harvest season, but the Bears is ready to go.
Yeah, I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. And so are the Packers this year. I have a feeling we're gonna have a pretty decent game, pretty decent season. So, but yeah, we'll cross those bridges as we get further into the fall. So, but let's get on with it today.
John, let's discuss about the beans. They are telling us different story about the pollination and the weather. Otherwise, what is your thoughts about the fundamentals on the beans markets?
Well, obviously, beans are made in August, and so we're going to see how the weather comes together here. Obviously, the forecasts right now are looking pretty good. Bean crop jumped nicely in crop ratings last week. I had above the market's expectations. Yeah, but again, crop ratings just show you the health of the plant, doesn't exactly talk about what the production is on the inside. So these next couple of weeks will be pretty decent here. And actually, from talking to some producers, a little dry out time would be kind of nice as long as temperatures don't get too hot. They've just been getting enough moisture in that regard, excuse me. But in terms of how the fundamentals are looking in the bean market's been a bit rough here the last couple of weeks, and there's some reasons why U.S. beans are just struggling in competitiveness against global bean prices. We've got this large Brazil crop that we got to continue to work through. Argentina has lowered their export taxes again, so that's going to keep them very active into the buying window here in terms of the importers, mainly China. So those things are really weighing on the soybean market at this time frame. It's kind of a little bit nerve-wracking here. We're getting to kind of a historical window in terms of the amount of time that China has not bought U.S. beans, and we're in that area where we'd like to see those bean sales pick up. Last year they picked up about middle of July, and they were buying heavily into the harvest window. Those sales just aren't there this year. I mean, some of that's just thumb in the nose at the Trump trade war. I think the biggest part of it is just the economics aren't there for Chinese to buy U.S. beans. And given the global supplies out there, I'm a little concerned that they're going to try to get through without buying U.S. beans or buying a minimum amount of U.S. beans that we could see. Open up the soybean meal market as well. We got a massive supply of soybean meal out there globally. We see that as prices are reflecting 2016 levels here at this time frame. I mean, obviously, you got China, United States, Brazil, Argentina, all crushing large amounts of beans, if not records amounts of beans in those countries to get bean oil for the biofuel industry. So what's the byproduct? Soybean meal. Add in there the fact too, about a month back, China was talking about reducing their sow herd by 1 million head. So we're starting to see some culling pick up there. That could just really slow down the third and fourth quarter demand for beans. And that's the key window that we are counting on them to buy U.S. beans. So right now the bean market is very defensive. And now we're getting even expectations of a bigger bean crop maybe getting planted out of Brazil next year, going into the 2025-26 window. Right now, it's just not a good spot to be an owner of beans here, as the market is trying to maybe possibly break through here and go challenge some of those lows we haven't seen in almost a year.
What is your thoughts on this harvest season in the Midwest like with the weather?
It's going to be interesting to see how things play out. Obviously, things can change very quickly with weather. And if we dry out and get a little warm, maybe we don't finish out the crop. I mean, last year we obviously had that as a major issue for both corn and beans in terms of losing some production at the end. I question maybe it wasn't the full 4 bushels per acre in January. We'll see, just from talking to people, the way the cash market acted, things of that nature. But at the same time, we got to watch how this weather goes. Now, currently, forecasts are still looking fairly friendly in terms of moisture. Temperatures are supposed to warm up, but again, it's August. Things do get a little warmer in August and July. We're not looking at anything extreme, maybe 1 or 2 degrees above normal, which in this case, like I said, would probably even help the market out a little bit or the plants out a little bit, maybe drying out some water. So August into September will be a key. If we stay dry there, we'll get a nice drawdown, nice finish on both these crops, get harvest going along at a nice pace. The other side of it, if we do stay on the wetter side, we could just see this crop's, lack of getting into maturity. Saw that a handful of years ago as the crop just kept getting bigger and bigger. So the close and the end of this year will be very key in terms of how this crop wants to finish out for both corn and soybeans.
I am wondering, could we see more soybean demand to shift from corn about the biofuel industry for next year after the RVO for this year? Do you think that farmers are wanting to planting more beans for next year?
It's going to be a good question to ask, especially with bean prices moving the way they are right now, that there's not even a lot of meat on the bone there. You're looking at 1040 beans for November 26, 10450 corn right at this time frame for the 26 growing season. So I know it's extremely early, but in that regard, now the global supply of beans is going to keep the bean market pressured. Really, we're going to be counting on internal demand for that biofuel industry and making bean oil. So there's going to be a lot of different moving parts out there. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see much of a change in acreage next year in terms of corn to beans, especially if prices continue at these levels. There's just not a lot of profit margin for either at this time frame. Obviously, things can change very dramatically, but I've been starting to have those conversations with producers here. You're already starting thinking about 2026 and starting to build some defense into the marketplace just to make sure we kind of lock in some values, especially considering we're trading 30 cents above, where we are here in December corn and even more than that in November beans versus the front end. So it'll be interesting to see what that shakeout comes out to next year. I think over the next handful of weeks, the demand price movement, things of that nature as we go into the end of the year will be a big piece of that puzzle.
How is the technical aspects on November beans for today from biofuel demand, John?
Well, right now the technical side of the bean market is very, very poor with prices breaking to new nearby lows. and basically China hang on to a key support level. If that doesn't hold, it feels like we got a little bit further for this market to drop. I'm actually forecasting November beans to maybe fall to about the 960 window, which really, when you look at it in the soybean market, we're less than 30 cents from there. So I think that's something we'll have to watch now. Maybe the speed of how we get there, what happens on the demand side, will be big pieces to that puzzle. So we'll have to see going forward. Now, the bio demand, the biodiesel fuel side of it, the oil demand is still going to be probably the main driver, at least in terms of usage for beans here from the United States. Those export beans are going to be obviously still a very key piece. If we don't get those sales that we need to China, that could keep this market extremely pressured. The biofuel side of it, though, the only problem is now everybody's into it. Brazil's crushing record amounts of beans. Argentina's crushing record beans. All that bean oil is going into biodiesel. So does it kind of water down the industry a little bit? So we'll have to watch that going forward. But at least right now, the bean market and the corn market are going to have a lot of decisions to make over the next handful of months to determine next year's planting numbers.
What is your thoughts on the cattle markets for the fundamentals with these prices? I've been seeing the prices for the feeder cattle. I realize that the cattle markets is getting ramped up with these prices.
Yeah, we were red hot again until today, and today we pulled the rug out, just kind of talking about where we are, losing $5 on live cattle, up to almost $8 on feeders today. Just an aggressive selling spree kicking in as maybe we've hit a bit of a seasonal top at an end of the month time frame here today. Fundamentals are still friendly. Let's not change that at all. Those things were confirmed in the last cattle on feed. Excuse me, last cattle on feed as well as cattle inventory report. His herd size is not growing, but we're just maybe due for a bit of a pullback. We'll have to see if we get some follow through off of today's price action. But that was a pretty disappointing day in the cattle market as we saw money just kind of bailing out of the positions, probably driven by the fact that retail carcasses are now down significantly, nearly they're over $30 off the most recent highs. So we're starting to see some pretty good selling pressure at least kick in today in the cattle market. But we'll have to see what August 1st gives us. I do think any major pullback in terms of a price correction probably just gives us an opportunity to own the market again.
How is the Packers bids for right now? I'm not talking about the football team.
Right now, cash bids are going to look to be a little bit higher, at least at the start of the week. And I think the market already priced that in. Haven't seen a whole lot of activity, but it is Thursday afternoon, so we'll probably see some more things kicking up. Actually, looks like we got a little more finalized trade 244, 45 in Nebraska. So that is firmer than last week. Dress trade trading $3 to $5 higher than last week as well. But I think the market kind of knew that already. And this was more of a technical move today in terms of prices tumbling. Like I said, we'll have to see what August gives us here. We could just continue to see some money flow. And unfortunately, if it continues to be strong, there's just not a big enough door for people to get out of the cattle market. Other things you've been hearing in the cattle market too are concerning. You just hear more chatter and business news, things of that nature about the impacts of higher beef prices and hitting some of the restaurant trade, things of that nature that are out there. So that could be something, maybe a bit of a sign that maybe the consumer might slow down in terms of beef demand, and that would be something that would definitely cause this cattle market to peak out and those cash prices to start maybe working a little bit softer, especially given the fact that the Packers right now are really behind the eight ball in terms of margins, and they're going to do whatever they can to get those cattle cash prices down.
Finally, do you recommend for the premium risk on these prices for grains and livestock?
Livestock, obviously, because you can see how quickly the market can move in that regard today. Just so having some type of protection out there, I think is still extremely important at this time frame. On the grain side, it's a little bit more difficult, obviously, because, what are we protecting? We're protecting losses in that regard in terms of production, but there's still room for maybe that bean market to be a little bit more aggressive, keeping some put protection underneath here, just at least maybe getting some control of unpriced bushels, things of that nature. Same thing even on the corn side, even though I think the corn market might be getting a little bit closer to its bottoming window, but I still think there's 20 to maybe 30 cents there. I would look at, if you're doing protection in the grain markets too, make sure you're looking at the carry that's in the market. Get out into those spring contracts where we can lock in 440, 450 corn or 1030, 1040 beans, and just make sure we're getting some floor put there. Because I do think these large South American crops plus our potential decent sized production could have a long tail to it and could be a limiting factor in a lot of rallies going forward.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, and good talking with you again. We'll talk to you soon.
This is John Heinberg from Total Farm Marketing. I am Cesar Delgado. You have a great day.